stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, a roundtable conversation about life and justice in the Twin Cities since the murder of George Floyd 5 years ago. We'll be joined by Nekima Levy Armstrong, founder of the Racial Justice Network, Tabitha Montgomery, executive director of the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association, and Haley Taylor Schlitz, an attorney in the office of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who was our lead guest yesterday on this program. In our third hour, Rondo, the man who was chief of police when they suffocated George Floyd 5 years ago. He has authored a new text called Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd, and I look forward to hearing the true backstory from Chief Rondo in hour 3. But in this first hour today, 2 more conversations on the B side of this hour. A conversation with famed civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who of course represented the family of George Floyd, which received a $27 million settlement from the city of Minneapolis in a civil lawsuit related to his death. The settlement is one of, if not the largest, pre-trial civil rights wrongful death settlement in all of U.S. history. And so we'll talk to Ben Crump 5 years after the murder of George Floyd on the backside of this hour. But we commence today's show with this.
Excuse me, turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it.
They told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen.
Death of people. Death. Death. Death.
What you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can take land.
And then when they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No.
People are fleeing South Africa for their own safety. Their land is being confiscated, and in many cases, they're being killed. And that scene of, you see how many crosses they have. Those crosses, that's a dead person in every one of them.
All right, that's the first clip I wanted to play for you of Donald Trump in what was an ambush of South African President Cyril Ramaphosa yesterday in the Oval Office. So that's Donald Trump having his say. This is what the president of South Africa had to say after the meeting yesterday in the Oval Office.
In the end, we had a really good bilateral, although a number of issues came up, which you will all have observed. And we were able to have a robust engagement with Mr. Trump in your presence. You wanted to see drama and something really big happening. And I'm sorry that we disappointed you somewhat when it comes to that. All in all, I do believe that our visit here has been a great success. We've been able to achieve what we set out to achieve re-engagement with the U.S., to put the issues of investment and trade on the table.
How Cyril Ramaphosa described this visit as a great success is beyond me. Mr. President, with all due respect, put down the crack pipe. Do they have crack in South Africa? Put down the crack pipe, Cyril Ramaphosa, number one. But Donald Trump was just completely out of control yesterday. There is only one way to say this. Donald Trump and his aides, as I intimated earlier, ambushed South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, in the Oval Office. Why these world leaders keep coming to the U.S. To ask for this, I do not know. The meeting started yesterday with the usual handshake and cordial pleasantries. And then Donald Trump, as you heard, went in with the cameras rolling for the world to see. The president said, dim the lights. And he played a video that he cited as evidence of racial persecution and mass killings of white South Africans, except that everything, and I do mean everything, that Donald Trump said yesterday was a lie. I'm going to break all these issues down for you when we come forward, but every single thing he uttered yesterday on the world stage was a lie from the pit of hell. We will talk in this hour, in this half hour, about Donald Trump's extraordinary smackdown of Cyril Ramaphosa when we come forward with Ambassador Charles R. Stith, the non-executive chairman of the African Presidential Leadership Center based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Mr. Stith is the former U.S. ambassador to Tanzania during the Clinton era and currently serves as chairman of the Pula Group, LLC. And we are blessed that while he spends most of his time, a good bit of it, in South Africa, he's actually in L.A. today. And he's in studio right now. I'm looking at his handsome visage right now. We'll talk to Charles Stith, the ambassador, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening.
Charitable listening.
It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into stand-up material live at Inglewood's Miracle Theater on May 31st at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My clinical team will disclose all of your dating woes, while the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady, has hand-selected supremely talented comedians to roast all of our tragic relationship choices. I dare you to bring your ex's phone number because Ray, he's going to text it live and the crowd will be sourcing emojis. Tickets are moving swiftly, so don't hesitate to grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before I diagnose your dating history as a pre-existing condition.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit NoTimeToWait.com, sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
40 acres in the mule, this is bigger than the music. You really about to do it? Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
Who among us doesn't like black music? But Kendrick is right. This moment is so much bigger than music. These are serious times. We've got serious problems, and we need serious people who understand that slogans are not solutions. When you want substantial and sober analysis about things that matter to you and the ones you love, this is where you turn. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black. He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
After Zelensky and the Prime Minister of Canada and others I can name that were just humiliated and embarrassed by Donald Trump in the Oval Office, yesterday comes Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa. And he got ambushed and bushwhacked as the ambassador we're just talking about. So let me just start with a broad question. We'll narrow from there. So you've heard a bit of my commentary. At least I got more. Trust me. But what did you? First of all, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in the studio. Yeah, man, my friend. Thank you for coming in the studio, sir. What did you see yesterday? What did you see?
I pretty much saw what you saw, and you know, I mean, a response to it, if you're an American, if you're an African American, is certainly to be angered by it. But, you know, as somebody who's held a position in government, I was embarrassed by it. Mm-hmm. As my grandmama would say, when somebody comes to your house, you just don't treat your house guests rude.
That's right.
And so it was problematic. I just got back from Johannesburg on Monday. Mm-hmm. And so there's a great deal of anticipation and speculation about how this visit would turn out. The G20 is supposed to be held in South Africa, as they referenced during the on-camera portion of the meeting. So for South Africa, in terms of just kind of recalibrating itself on the international stage, it was an important meeting.
Why did Cyril Ramaphosa take this meeting? Why did he need this meeting? Why did he come?
Well, he came because while we're no longer the largest trading partner of South Africa, we're the fourth largest. And over against South Africa's trade relationships with other major countries, they're not running a deficit in their trade relationship with us. It's a positive number for them.
For South Africa.
For South Africa.
Right.
So the meeting was important, you know, as it relates to the international markets, to refactor this narrative that South Africa is about white genocide. You know, that's not the kind of stuff floating around when you need to go to the bond market to raise money, to do everything from infrastructure to power. Yeah. So it was an important meeting for him to take. I wish that he would have been briefed a little bit better and prepared a little bit better, because it was pretty evident. I mean, he kind of telegraphed where he was going to go during the course of this meeting. I think that one of the things that would have been important to punctuate is that this is not a begging bowl relationship in terms of South Africa. They are an important strategic partner for us. We can't do space travel without South Africa, because one of our major tracking stations is located there. When I was in Tanzania and the embassy was bombed in 1998 there and in Nairobi, the South Africans were very, very instrumental in us apprehending one of the culprits in the bombing. So they're an important strategic partner in a geopolitical sense. Yeah. And then, of course, to be supportive of South Africa and the way that they've tried to deal with reconciling a society that was fractured along race lines, not by the black South Africans, but by the apartheid regime. I was in South Africa in 1982. That was my first visit. And I remember seeing the black only, colored only, white only signs plastered up all over the country and in every venue. So, you know, it's the right thing to do, to be supportive of a government that's tried to reconcile that society.
To the backstory that you're sharing now, for those who don't recall or need a refresher course on the effects of apartheid in South Africa for all those many years, I want to run through the issues right quick on which Donald Trump was just flat wrong. And this is one of the areas where the media has gotten it right. They've had some time over the last 24 hours to really run through what happened in that meeting yesterday. And I can't even call it a meeting. Again, it's an ambush. It's a bushwhacking in the Oval Office. I want to run through these issues right quick. But since you mentioned it, you just got back from Johannesburg on South Africa on Monday. You said he goes back and forth like 4, 5, 6 weeks here, 4, 5, 6 weeks there. He's back and forth all the time with a home here in L.A., telling all your business, and a home in South Africa. But my question is, what have you heard so far? It's only been 24 hours. What are you hearing on the ground in South Africa about the way the South African people are viewing what happened to their president yesterday in the Oval Office?
Well, one of the things that's been pleasing, and I've been on the phone all night talking to people, is that people were overwhelmingly pleased with the way he comported himself.
Yes.
He continued to appear presidential in the face of the onslaught that he suffered. They're pleased and proud that he continued to try to offer a fact-based response to the issues that were raised. And I think one of the things which was very smart on the part of the South Africans that took a little bit of the air out of the president's balloon was, Retief Goosen, Johan Rupert, the new Minister of Agriculture who's a member of the Democratic Alliance, having them in the meeting to help be the show and tell that white people are not under onslaught in South Africa.
Yeah, he is getting Ramaphosa, that is the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, is getting universal praise for remaining calm. Again, with that onslaught coming at him faster than the 405 freeway at 2 o'clock in the morning. He stayed calm in that meeting, so he's getting great credit for that. Let me just, I'm watching my time here. Let me walk through the 4 major issues that Donald Trump tried to assert yesterday, about which he was completely wrong. You heard in that clip we played him talk about this row of crosses marking graves of white farmers. It's just not true.
It's not true.
It's just not true. That's number one. Number two, his use of the word genocide of white farmers. It's just not true. I said on this program yesterday, Ambassador, I want your quick take on this, that it's fascinating for me that this administration cannot see genocide in Gaza, but they can see it all the way into South Africa. So it's genocide there, but not in Gaza. And it's so horrible for these white folk in South Africa that we're putting them on planes and these white South Afrikaners and bringing them here because they're being subjected to violence and genocide in South Africa, but not in Gaza. How do you read that right quick?
Well, look, Trump is who Trump is. And as I said, the expectation that anything different was going to happen, at least publicly, than what we saw would have been a pipe dream. I think the only criticism, if I had any to level against President Ramaphosa, is that I would have suggested that he spend several days in the country, that he get outside of Washington, D.C. I would have suggested that he do your show, not to talk about Trump, but to talk about the U.S. bilateral relationship which preceded Trump and will succeed Trump.
Yeah.
And what the stakes are for both of our countries. You should have gone to some of you should have gone to Atlanta. You should have gone to New York and to Harlem. And, there needs to be more of these kind of discussions outside the Beltway so that people have a better understanding of the issues.
Donald Trump thirdly suggested that South African officials are calling for violence against white farmers. Just not true.
It's not true.
Yeah.
Julius Malema is the head of a minor political party which has continued to shrink in terms of support. But, keep in mind, South Africa is a free country.
And he's not a member of government.
They have a constitution.
Yeah.
And so people have a right to speak. And so, that somebody like Malema would say something untoward is not indicative of South Africa in the same way the folks who marched and said Jews will not replace us is indicative of the majority of opinion in the United States.
And I repeat, he's not a member of the government, so he's not a South African official. So it's just inaccurate.
Well, he is a member of Parliament.
Yeah.
He is a member of Parliament.
Yeah. But he's not a member.
But he's not
of
a member.
Ramaphosa.
He's not a member of the executive branch.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he's not a member. He's not a member of Ramaphosa's government. So anyway, the last issue very quickly. Just again watching this time here, the documents that Donald Trump. If you saw this, he dims the lights, plays some video, then he pulls out some documents with some photos on them, and he again tries to smack down Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa. Turns out that the documents and the pictures he held up were not even in South Africa. It's the DR Congo. Yes. You're holding up images in another country.
Yes.
It wasn't even in South Africa.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that the president of these United States could just lie and get all of his facts wrong on the world stage, humiliating a black African president, I ain't got a language for it, man. It has rubbed me raw.
Yeah. No, I mean, look. The visceral response to it is warranted. Yeah. But I've argued all along, Donald Trump is going to be Donald Trump. Yeah. And the issue is not what he will do. The issue is what are we going to do?
Let me do this right quick. I'm watching Miles. This is one of my favorite clips of all time. I mean, when you do this as long as I've done it, I mean, there are all kinds of clips, some entertainment, some political, some economic, some social, but this stuff just stays in my brain. When I saw this yesterday, my mind went to another South African president named Nelson Mandela. This is Nelson Mandela on Ted Koppel's Nightline program when he came to the U.S. after being released from prison in South Africa. Listen to how Mandela handled this. This is what Ramaphosa should have done yesterday.
Let us move on to our next questioner at the microphone over there. Mr.
Welcome to America, Mr. Mandela. I'm Ken Edelman. Those of us who share your struggle for human rights and against apartheid have been somewhat disappointed by the models of human rights that you have held up since being released in jail. You've met over the last 6 months 3 times with Yasser Arafat, who you have praised. You have told Gaddafi that you share the view on, and applaud him on his record of human rights and his drive for freedom and peace around the world. And you have praised Fidel Castro as a leader of human rights and said that Cuba was one of the countries that's head and shoulders above all other countries in human rights, despite the fact that documents at the United Nations and elsewhere show that Cuba is one of the worst. I was just wondering, are these your models of leaders of human rights? And if so, would you want a Gaddafi or an Arafat or a Castro to be a future president of South Africa?
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies.
Mic drop. Mic drop. Mic drop. That's how you do it, Mr. Ambassador. Mandela handled that thing. One sentence off the break, he smacked that questioner down on Nightline. That's how you handle it. And I'm not suggesting that Mr. Ramaphosa had to be in any way disrespectful of Donald Trump, but for him to suggest that he had a good trip, that he thought this meeting was a great success, I don't know what he saw.
Well, you know, again, in all fairness to President Ramaphosa, they did meet for 3 hours plus after the media show. Mm-hmm. And in those kind of settings, the level of discussion does get elevated. And if the president of South Africa felt like there were some things that were discussed that represented forward progress, good for him. But as you know, the old folks used to say, at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. Mm-hmm. It's not the recipe.
That's right.
Proof is in the pudding.
In the pudding, yes.
So, you know, let's see what will happen out of this. I do think, rather than a clear reset with the U.S., there has been a reset in the media relative to this issue around white genocide in South Africa.
And if that's true, then that is success.
That's helpful.
Because that storyline was going nowhere.
That's helpful.
Yeah. I've got 60 seconds left here. I'll give it all to you. What are your hopes for Donald Trump's relationship, not just with South Africa, but to the continent, given that he called many of these countries S-hole countries a few years ago? I got 45 seconds.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't expect that there'll be much, and I think when you look at the kind of transactional proposals that he's put on the table relative to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, it would suggest this is not going to have a positive arc. I think the important thing, though, is for Africa to look out how it reshapes the narrative. Mm-hmm. And with the kind of tensions globally, it opens up opportunities for Africa to engage the rest of the world and U.S. business people in a different way. Because we're in the middle of an energy transition. Yeah. Forget the climate deniers. It is irreversible, and the only alternative for all the critical minerals that the world needs is China and Africa.
There ought to be a sign on the door of the Oval Office that all world leaders should read before deciding whether or not they want to go inside. The sign should simply read, "Enter at your own risk." Enter at your own risk. I digress for now. He is the non-executive chairman of the African Presidential Leadership Center and former U.S. ambassador to Tanzania during the Clinton era. He is now the visionary behind the Pula Group, LLC, and I'm always honored to be in conversation with my friend and brother, the Ambassador Charles R. Stith. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thanks for being here, Tavis. Keep up the good work, brother.
We're doing our best, man. Doing our best. Coming up, we're going to spend the rest of this show commemorating the 5th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. We'll start those conversations with Ben Crump when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say, "when we come forward"?
Because he's not going back.
And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. Forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago was arrested for fatally shooting two Israeli embassy staffers outside D.C.'s Capitol Jewish Museum on May 21st. He shouted "Free Palestine" during his arrest. Here's Black Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Pamela A. Smith, with a breakdown.
Suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire.
The victims were a young couple soon to be engaged. The African American Male Wellness Agency says 60% of black men risk developing type 2 diabetes by age 55. To raise awareness, the Columbus, Ohio hub is hosting weekly events leading to Black Men's Wellness Day on August 2nd. And SZA is defending Megan Thee Stallion after Tory Lanez legal team claims new evidence could clear him in the 2020 shooting. SZA slammed the bullying of Megan online, calling her a proven assault victim. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Once upon a time, the Clippers had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on their roster. He played in all 82 games for the Clippers as a rookie in the 2018-19 season. 6 years later, Gilgeous-Alexander was voted the NBA's most valuable player. The Oklahoma City guard led the NBA in scoring this season with a 32.7 average and was a major reason OKC had the NBA's best record at 68-14. Forgive me for bringing up a bad memory. In 2019, the Clippers traded Gilgeous-Alexander and 7 first-round picks to OKC for Paul George, who's now in Philadelphia. OKC and Minnesota play Game 2 tonight in the Western Conference Finals. OKC is up 1-0. In the East, Indiana broke down New York with a 138-135 win in overtime in Game 1. The Knicks had an 8-point lead with 41 seconds left in the fourth quarter. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint. KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth. Here we go again. Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast. Oh my God. But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say. Let's do this.
Let's get it on. On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the 2nd consecutive year with our Climate Justice plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, talk about.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There will be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA.
We love you. Love you.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
We thank Ambassador Charles R. Stith for starting us off today with conversation about that drama in the White House yesterday. What just a huge embarrassment, humiliation of Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa. But enough on that for now. Again, we thank Ambassador Stith for his insights to lead us off today in this program. The rest of this program, 2.5 hours, will be focused on commemorating the life of George Floyd, murdered 5 years ago in Minneapolis, May 25th to be exact. And so we have the right person to kick off these 2.5 hours of conversation with a variety of people. I welcome back to this program famed civil rights attorney, the man who represented the family of George Floyd on the way to a $27 million settlement with the city of Minneapolis. As I mentioned earlier, the largest pre-trial settlement of a case like this in the history of this country. He's back, and I'm delighted. Ben Crump, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, brother. It's good to hear your voice, and thank you, Tavis, for paying attention to this landscape. I'm sorry. I don't know if my phone
is having
we got you.
We got you. Me? We got you, yeah.
Okay. This landmark case that was, sea change in the history of the world, how they saw the abuse happening to black people by police in the U.S. And now with what just recently happened this week, yesterday,
I saw that,
with the Department of Justice, we now more than ever got to pay attention and not get complacent, knowing that they are trying to deny not only our civil rights, but our human rights.
Yeah. The thing that Ben Crump is referring to, if you were listening yesterday, you heard us talk about this when the news broke yesterday while I was live on the air. But I certainly want to get Ben Crump's take on this. The Justice Department, Donald Trump's Justice Department, announced yesterday that it is pulling all civil rights investigations into local police departments, including Minneapolis, where they murdered George Floyd, including Louisville, where they murdered Breonna Taylor, including Memphis, where they murdered Tyree Nichols, and other cities. But what is your read? I saw your statement, but in case the audience didn't get a chance to read it as I did, just give me your opening thoughts here, Ben Crump, about this news yesterday. And as I said on the radio yesterday, it is as if Donald Trump is like a heat-seeking missile, trying to find anything and everything he can say or do to diminish black people. Just months ago, he was campaigning for the black vote. He was campaigning for black men to support him. And sadly, the numbers are, the data is incontrovertible. There were more black folk this last time that supported Donald Trump than the first time. How these Negroes are remaining silent right now with all that he's doing to damage and destroy and to desecrate black life in this country, I don't quite get it. But he waits until the anniversary, the eve of the anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, to make this announcement. I said yesterday, this is like tap dancing on George Floyd's grave, Ben Crump.
Wow, Tavis Smiley. I certainly don't think it's a coincidence that they waited to the week of the anniversary of the tragedy to do this, because I think they're trying to send a message to us that we don't matter. They don't think Black lives matter. And this really is their response to George Floyd and all of the progress we made in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd. They are trying to not only slap George Floyd, Breonna, and Tyree Nichols' families in the face, they are slapping Black America in the face, saying, you all have to understand that we see you all as irrelevant. Your lives are irrelevant, your culture is irrelevant, and your contributions are irrelevant. And really, Tavis, we're in the midst of a war, and I don't think Black people realize that they have declared war on us. And so when we think about what we do to memorialize George Floyd and his legacy, let's see it as a call to action, not just a memorial, but we have to do something to make sure our cities and our states, if we can't do anything about the federal government, let's don't have a defeatist mentality. Let's understand that our people have a history of overcoming the pharaohs and the powers that be.
But you know Ben Crump better than most. You've been at the epicenter. You've helmed many of these cases. When you can't get respect, when you can't get justice at the municipal level or at the state level, then it is the federal government to which we have turned historically as Black people to try to get some modicum of justice. And now the federal level, the Department of Justice, is turning its back on us, saying that we don't care. We're not going to investigate police misconduct in cities all across the country. So when the states let us down, when the cities let us down, and now the government, the federal government, lets us down, what are we to do?
Well, we first remember that before the city, the state, or the federal government helped Black people, it was we Black people that fended for ourselves. We saved ourselves, Tavis Smiley.
Yep.
You know, you're a student of history more than most people I know on the face of this earth, especially Black history. And we must remember that Marcus Garvey, 102 years ago, talked about who speaks for the Black man. And the answer is we must speak for ourselves. It was the 100th birthday celebration, heavenly celebration of Malcolm X on Monday. And I'm forever reminded of what Malcolm X said. We declare our rights as human beings, to be treated as human beings, and to be respected as human beings. And we intend to bring this into reality on this earth, in this society, at this time, by any means necessary. So we got to have one of those mentalities now, that we all we got right now. And the cities and the states, though, like Minneapolis said after that, they're going to continue to work to honor George Floyd. Also, Louisville leadership said the same thing. So we just have to continue to be strategic. But, Tavis, you did it best, contract with Black America. Hey, we got to hold people accountable, and if they don't live up to their word, then we got to never forget and we got to go on and handle our business.
Yeah. Let me ask you. We've already established. You and I agreed. I suspect most, if not everybody in this audience agrees that it was not coincidental, to use your word, that the Department of Justice announced this week, as we commemorate the 5th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, that the Department of Justice is abandoning all civil rights investigations into local police departments. That timing was not happenstance. It was intentional. It was deliberate, and so that's bad enough. But what would even be worse is if Donald Trump listens to Marjorie Taylor Greene and others who are demanding that he pardon Derek Chauvin. Again, you're the attorney for the George Floyd family. Can you imagine Donald Trump pardoning Derek Chauvin?
It certainly isn't inconceivable because nothing he does surprises me.
Yep.
Him and Elon Musk, they exercise these white supremacist beliefs with action. And when you think about it, Tavis, Smiley, nothing would shock us. But if he did that, imagine how they are trying to erase the truth of what we saw on that video. It would be a mockery on justice itself if he were to pardon Derek Chauvin. But we prepare and brace ourselves to say, irrespective of that, we know he got state convictions.
That's right.
And so that's why it was so important to get state and federal convictions. Black people always got to get as much justice as we can.
That's right.
We can't rely on the federal government, the state government. Who can we rely on? Us, black people fighting for black people. And that's why I thank you so much, Tavis. I don't think people get it, that when you say, I'm going to be about the business of uplifting black liberty, black life, and black culture, that is an intentional, courageous act, because so many people go along to get along. But no, we have to have black people who have that Harriet Tubman mentality.
Yeah, I'm glad Ben put his finger on that, just to underscore that a bit more. The governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, as you recall, the running mate of Kamala Harris in that campaign last year, Governor Walz has said it doesn't matter if Donald Trump pardons Derek Chauvin, he should not do that. But if he does, we're already preparing to transfer Derek Chauvin from a federal prison to a state prison. He is going to serve that 22 and a half years. They ain't letting him out. If Minnesota, the state, has anything to say about it, and you heard Keith Ellison as our lead guest on this program yesterday, the AG who successfully prosecuted that case against Derek Chauvin and those three other cops. You heard Keith Ellison amen that yesterday on this program. So that Donald Trump can pardon Derek Chauvin if he wills. It'd be a mockery, to use Ben Crump's words. It'd be a mockery for sure. But he's not going to get out. Again, the state of Minnesota has anything to say about it. They will transfer him to a state prison, and he will sit there for the next 20 plus years. I digress on that for now. When we come forward, there are a couple other things I want to ask Ben Crump about while I have him. There's so many cases he's involved in. But I was reading an article last night preparing for our dialogue with Ben Crump today, and the story I was reading last night was about how these police misconduct settlements, even when they're $27 million like Ben got for the George Floyd family and other major cases that Ben Crump is one, obviously. This article was saying that these police misconduct settlements, even the numbers are large, into the millions, that departments rarely feel the impact. There's just so much money in policing. There's so much money in city budgets for police that even when they make these payouts, they don't really feel the pain of it. We'll talk about that in a great deal more with Ben Crump when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit NoTimeToWait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
BET and PBS, The Tom Joyner Morning Show, and NPR, the cover of Jet and the cover of Time. #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list, 20 honorary doctorate degrees, a dozen NAACP Image Awards, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. From talk shows to talk radio, nobody's ever done it better. You like that? This is Tavis Smiley.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than Saquon Barkley, the NFL's reigning leading rusher. I'm also the NFL's leading husher. Shh, hush up back there. Wow, I might have just set the hushing record. Well, almost. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
Ben Crump, 5 years after George Floyd's tragic death, calls to reform qualified immunity are still falling silent. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, we know that the Supreme Court, as it's currently constricted, Tavis, is going to probably be more conservative in their view of police misconduct than even previous courts.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have a lot of states that implemented policies in the aftermath of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor's killing that give us hope. And remember, Tavis, elections matter. So if we don't have the federal government, we can have these state legislators, these city governments, and they can implement the policies because it's really right there in your local communities that police are most affected by. Yeah. And so if we have, Memphis with a black city council or Minneapolis, that they can put those things in place despite what the Supreme Court or Donald Trump does.
I was thinking about the point you made a moment ago, Ben Crump, and you're absolutely right about this, how about when it comes to justice for black people, you have to double down. And that's what Ben Crump does. He doubles down on these cases because when you think about George Floyd, if Donald Trump were to pardon Derek Chauvin, it's the state that's going to still hold him accountable. In the Tyree Nichols case, it's the exact opposite, right? The state just let those cops off the hook, but the federal government holds him accountable. So I take your point being that when it comes to black folk, you got to double down on state and federal charges.
You really do, man. And I didn't get to talk to you about that Tyree Nichols matter. It harkened back to the Rodney King, Simi Valley, jury acquitting them. That's what they did in Memphis. Instead of having the black Memphis city population have the jury pool selected from there, they went to outside Chattanooga, Tennessee, got an all-white jury, and that all-white jury did what the Rodney King all-white jury did.
Yep.
They just looked past all the visual evidence on the video and said, we're going to support the power and we're going to victimize the black people again.
Our remaining moments with Ben Crump when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
New Always Pocket Flex Foam will change the way you think about pads. Get full-size protection in a surprisingly tiny pack that fits right in your purse or pocket. Perfect for life on the go. With up to 0 leaks, 0 feel, and 0 bunching, you'll forget you're even wearing a pad. And Always Pocket Flex Foam is designed to adapt to your body, so you can move freely and confidently throughout your day. Experience the future of period protection with new Always Pocket Flex Foam. Pick up your pack today.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ben Crump. I am always grateful for the time he gives me. I got about 3 minutes left. I want to cover 2 other issues right quick. I start with this. Police misconduct settlements can cost millions, Ben Crump. You know better than anybody because you're the guy that wins these cases. But I'm told from my reading that these departments rarely feel the impact because there's so much money in policing.
Yeah, Tavis, I don't have to tell you, police unions have politicians shook.
Yeah.
They're afraid of them. And so whatever the police union wants, they normally get. However, when we have these cities that we have critical mass of black people on the city council, we can make an impact because if they have to pay $30, $40 million of the budget, at some point, they're going to say, we got to stop this.
Yeah. And
that's how we slow down the hashtags. I'm not naive enough to think we're going to stop them. I'm just fighting to slow them down, Tavis.
Yeah. The part that always troubles me about these settlements, and I'm glad you're on the front line for us, but officers themselves almost never contribute to these settlements. They're the ones who maim and murder, and it's our taxpayer dollars that end up covering these cases, but the officers themselves, those behind the misconduct, behind the murder, behind the maiming, they never pay. It never impacts their paycheck. I digress on that for now. Finally, in this conversation, Ben Crump, for which I am grateful always, has the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act stalled in Congress? You talked earlier about why voting matters.
It has, obviously, the MAGA Republicans would never vote to help black people, especially at the cost of losing any kind of narrative that they back the blue. So what we have to do, Tavis, is remember before the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act on federal level, we had many states starting to put a databases in process, ban the chokeholds, ban no not warrants. What we got to do, and it's sad we got to do this, Tavis, but people like you, people like the National Newspaper Association, black journalists, and other people of goodwill, we have to keep track of the database ourselves, since Trump and the federal government won't do it. Yeah. But I refuse to curse the darkness. We're going to keep striking matches, and we're going to show a better way for our people and our children.
Speaking of keeping track, nobody keeps track of black suffering better than Ben Crump, and he is always on the front line of efforts to achieve justice for our people, and for that I am eternally grateful, as I am to Ben Crump for always taking my phone call and coming on this program, and I need him. He never tells me no, and again, I appreciate that. Ben, I love you, man. Thank you for your insights. Good to have you on, and thank you for your remembrance 5 years later, sir.
I love you. Thank you for your counsel always, Tavis, and we're going to get justice for Malcolm X's family.
I appreciate your time, man. All the best to you. Ben Crump is our lead guest today in 2.5 hours of conversations commemorating the murder of George Floyd 5 years ago on May 25th, and we've got some great guests coming up for the next 2 hours. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago was arrested for fatally shooting two Israeli embassy staffers outside D.C.'s Capitol Jewish Museum on May 21st. He shouted "Free Palestine" during his arrest. Here's Black Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Pamela A. Smith, with a breakdown.
Suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire.
The victims were a young couple soon to be engaged. The African American Male Wellness Agency says 60% of black men risk developing type 2 diabetes by age 55. To raise awareness, the Columbus, Ohio hub is hosting weekly events leading to Black Men's Wellness Day on August 2nd. And SZA is defending Megan Thee Stallion after Tory Lanez legal team claims new evidence could clear him in the 2020 shooting. SZA slammed the bullying of Megan online, calling her a proven assault victim. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Once upon a time, the Clippers had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on their roster. He played in all 82 games for the Clippers as a rookie in the 2018-19 season. 6 years later, Gilgeous-Alexander was voted the NBA's most valuable player. The Oklahoma City guard led the NBA in scoring this season with a 32.7 average and was a major reason OKC had the NBA's best record at 68-14. Forgive me for bringing up a bad memory. In 2019, the Clippers traded Gilgeous-Alexander and 7 first-round picks to OKC for Paul George, who's now in Philadelphia. OKC and Minnesota play Game 2 tonight in the Western Conference Finals. OKC is up 1-0. In the East, Indiana broke down New York with a 138-135 win in overtime in Game 1. The Knicks had an 8-point lead with 41 seconds left in the fourth quarter. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Pastor and Mrs. William Sachs Epps on their retirement from stewardship at the historic Second Baptist Church. Dr. Epps has faithfully served Second Baptist as its senior pastor for 37 years. What a legacy of love and leadership. Pastor and Mrs. Epps will be honored at a luncheon on Saturday, July 26, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Sheraton Universal Hotel in Universal City, and you're invited to attend. Noted scholar Dr. Michael Eric Dyson is the keynote speaker. For ticket information, please contact epsretirement@gmail.com or call 213-399-2103. That's epsretirement@gmail.com or call 213-399-2103. 2023. To Pastor Epps and First Lady Epps, congratulations from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Oh.
I'm Tavis, Smiley, and glad to have you with us today on this program as we commemorate the 5th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We thank Ben Crump for kicking off 2.5 hours of conversation today regarding what happened, sadly, in Minneapolis 5 years ago on May 25th. In our third and final hour today, we'll talk to Chief Rondo, the former Minneapolis police chief, about his new book, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. I'm fascinated and anxious to hear the backstory, what was happening behind the scenes 5 years ago as Derek Chauvin put his knee on the neck of George Floyd and as other cops stood around and watched. I'm anxious to get to that third hour today to hear again Chief Rondo, the former chief of police in Minneapolis, in his own words. We'll do that about an hour from now. But in this hour, as promised, a roundtable conversation about life and justice in the Twin Cities since the murder of George Floyd 5 years ago. Please be joined by our friend, our dear sister, our brilliant regular contributor, Nekima Levy Armstrong, founder of the Racial Justice Network. Also, please be joined by Tabitha Montgomery, executive director of the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association, and Haley Taylor Schlitz, an attorney in the office of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who was our lead guest on this program yesterday. Keith was. An amazing conversation with him yesterday. Let me go around the horn and welcome everybody. Nekima, how are you today? Good to have you back on the program.
Thank you, Tavis. Thanks for having me. I am doing well.
It's good to hear your voice. Tabitha Montgomery, good to have you on. How are you today?
I'm good, sir. Thank you, Tavis, for having me.
My great honor to have you. And Haley, how are you? Good to have you back on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Glad to have you. Let me start with you, Nekima. I want to ask this opening question of all three of you. It's a broad question. I want to give you all the canvas you need to paint as you will. But my opening question is simply this. How are you feeling, Nekima, 5 years later?
5 years later, I still feel some trauma around what we all witnessed on May 25th of 2020. It was like watching a lynching from back in the day. And so many of us here still feel that trauma in our bodies. And while we are attempting to make progress, we know that the Trump administration is working overtime to roll back the progress. Just yesterday, the Department of Justice announced that they were going to withdraw from the federal consent decree process with the city of Minneapolis, which, as you know, is a slap in the face to our community, to the family of George Floyd, and to other victims of police violence. And beyond that, an added level of cruelty with regard to the fact that this announcement was made during the very week of the 5-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. So it's disappointing, but it's also in some ways as American as apple pie.
Yep, it is a wake-up call to be sure. We just had this conversation with Ben Crump moments ago about that very thing, how this White House deliberately, intentionally, methodically waited until this week to make that announcement about escaping the consent decree that is, not just in Minneapolis, but they're turning their back on investigating or holding accountable law enforcement all across the country. In Minneapolis, where they murdered George Floyd, in Louisville, where they murdered Breonna Taylor, in Memphis, where they murdered Tyree Nichols, on and on and on it goes. They are turning their back. The Department of Justice is, the federal government, turning its back on police accountability all across the country. But to wait until this week, on the eve of the anniversary, the commemoration of the murder of George Floyd, is calculated in the worst way. I digress on that for now. Tabitha Montgomery, how are you feeling 5 years later?
Blended. I have a range of emotions that certainly would not undercut anything that you and Nekima has shared. And I think that certainly in terms of the blended nature of how I feel also is a testament to the salve that the community has given me. Nekima and Haley and so many others who are active and activated around calling for justice in all forms. I feel blended and encouraged often because there's so many people in the community that I strive to serve every day that has chosen to be medicine. And it is clear when others have chosen to do the opposite. And so I will not pile on at this very moment with respect to what the federal government and the Trump administration is continuing to model in terms of how they want to serve and or not serve this country. But I think it puts me in a space of feeling very blended. I feel the wounds that are raised because not enough people have decided to be salve, but I certainly cannot deny the times that I have felt encouraged and supported and seen and inspired by the work that so many are doing, not only in our community, but around this country, dare I say the world, to declare that the season of hope and change is not yet behind us, that there is still very much work that each of us can do, not just in the name and the remembrance of George Perry Floyd Jr., but in the name of any other life that might be taken from some heinous act.
I want to hear more as we move through this hour from Tabitha Montgomery about being encouraged and supported and seen and inspired, as she just laid out, because the fight back is real. What happened 5 years ago is real. That is our reality. We have to accept it. But the fight back in these 5 years is also as real as rain, and so we'll talk about that part as well. Delighted to be at the epicenter of this roundtable as the moderator for the rest of this hour. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis, Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into stand-up material live at Inglewood's Miracle Theater on May 31st at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My clinical team will disclose all of your dating woes, while the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady, has hand-selected supremely talented comedians to roast all of our tragic relationship choices. I dare you to bring your ex's phone number because Ray, he's going to text it live and the crowd will be sourcing emojis. Tickets are moving swiftly, so don't hesitate to grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before I diagnose your dating history as a pre-existing condition.
You really about to do it? 40 acres and a mule. This is bigger than the music. You really about to do it? Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
Who among us doesn't like black music? But Kendrick is right. This moment is so much bigger than music. These are serious times. We've got serious problems, and we need serious people who understand that slogans are not solutions. When you want substantial and sober analysis about things that matter to you and the ones you love, this is where you turn. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than Saquon Barkley, the NFL's reigning leading rusher, I'm also the NFL's leading husher. Shh, hush up back there. Wow, I might have just set the hushing record. Well, almost. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Nekima Levy Armstrong, Tabitha Montgomery, and Haley Taylor Schlitz. A lot to unpack in this hour as we commemorate the tragic murder of George Floyd 5 years ago on May 25th. In our third and final hour today, we'll talk to Chief Rondo, the former chief of police in Minneapolis, about his new book, which focuses on securing justice for the murder of George Floyd. We'll have the police chief here in our third and final hour, but delighted again to have Nekima and Tabitha and Haley in this hour. I've heard from Nekima, I've heard from Tabitha, and now Haley. Haley, I don't think you were in the AG's office 5 years ago. If I'm wrong, you can disabuse me of that notion. But we had, as I mentioned earlier, your boss, Keith Ellison, was our lead guest on this program yesterday. Always honored to be in conversation with him. But what are your thoughts 5 years later, now that you're in the AG's office in Minnesota?
Thank you for having me. You're right. When George Floyd was murdered, I wasn't here in Minnesota. I was 17 years old, finishing my first year of law school. And really, you watch this on TV, on the news, like so many in my generation. I'm Gen Z, like so many of us did. And we once again had to witness the brutality of against our community and something that we've always known. What I remember most really is how familiar it felt, partially because those of us in Gen Z, especially Black Gen Z, were raised in a world of contradiction. Our first president that we remember was Barack Obama, but we also saw on our TVs the repeated brutality against our community with Trayvon Martin, Mysore, Sandra Bland, Tatiana Jefferson in Fort Worth, my hometown, George Floyd, and too many more. We grew up seeing this contradiction on TV of hope, but also, just defeat and hate and, acceptance in the White House, but, still police brutality and much more discrimination. So, and like I said earlier, partially because also particularly for me, again, I grew up with Barack Obama in the White House, but remembering and aware that just a few weeks prior to George Floyd's murder was the anniversary of my grandfather, Dwight Taylor's murder in the Rodney King civil unrest. He was the second person killed in the Rodney King civil unrest. So that also, struck a particular chord in me and my family, as well as seeing, just because at the time 28 years had passed did not mean that 28 years of progress had been made. And I think that as Gen Z, we've had to make sense of this duality, like very early on, the promise of hope and the reality of injustice. And what we've learned, I feel like what I've learned at least, is that symbolic victories are not necessarily symbolic of safety. And that feeling for Gen Z, the reality that what our parents had fought for and what they had hoped we wouldn't have to fight for, we do. And, just as I listen, and I'm really excited for this conversation, I think the question that I'm going to be thinking of for Gen Z is, will justice ever truly be served? Because I'm sure we'll get into it, but there are state and federal decrees. We see what this administration is doing. There's been local efforts to fight for justice. And I'll throw in there, that's why local elections matter. I know some people are tired of hearing that, but it really is why local elections matter. I'm sure we'll get into it. But those are the things I'm going to be thinking about, what we can do to make sure that justice truly will be served, if it ever will be served in Gen Z's lifetime.
It's going to be a great hour. Three brilliant sisters, and I'm just going to do my best to hold on as we move through this hour with Nekima and Tabitha and Haley. You can hear their brilliance already. I want to play a clip before I go forward here of a documentary called Backlash, The Murder of George Floyd. This just happens to be a documentary done in the UK, but one of the great voices in this documentary is one of our guests guest in this hour, Nekima Levy Armstrong. So here's the trailer for this documentary, Backlash, the murder of George Floyd. I got a few questions about it for Nekima when we come forward.
Put your hands up right now.
I can breathe.
It was reminiscent to me of a lynching.
This was a moment that we could not turn away from.
Okay, so when are we gonna change everything that makes this possible?
Every black person understands and realizes the first time you are reminded that you are black.
It changed the way the air felt. Everything felt electric.
There was an outpouring of solidarity and a response to the fact that the UK is not innocent.
This is our country.
How dare they say that they matter?
There will always be forces that will seek to diminish us and stifle us and keep us in our place. But resistance requires that we rise up.
That day on May the 26th, that's when the world changed.
I played that trailer of this documentary, Backlash, the murder of George Floyd. Again, a UK documentary. You can tell by the British accents outside of Nekima's voice. I played that because it is worth reminding ourselves, worth remembering the worldwide impact that the murder of George Floyd had 5 years ago. I'm trying to juxtapose that 5 years later with the election of all of these authoritarian rulers in this country and around the globe in that 5-year period. Perhaps we'll get into that, what a difference 5 years makes in terms of the kind of leadership we're getting on the world stage. I'll put a pin in that for the moment. But Nekima, again, I'm delighted that the producers were wise enough to get you to be a part of this documentary in the UK. But just talk to me about the worldwide impact of this murder 5 years ago.
Well, thank you, Tavis, for playing that clip. It is a powerful documentary, and I hope that people take the time to watch it to see an example of the worldwide impact of the murder of George Floyd and our collective decision to rise up in the face of oppression. When you look at what happened in the aftermath of George Floyd, remembering, number one, that we were in the midst of a pandemic. Mm-hmm. So that meant that, we were obviously concerned about our health and safety, but at the same time, we were a captive audience because the world had come to a standstill. So when that video that was captured by amazing 17-year-old Darnella Frazier, who was a high school senior at the time, it captured the world's attention to watch that many minutes of a police officer abusing his power and literally suffocating the life out of a person caused people to not only not look away, but to be mortified and to be moved towards action. And so as a result of this particular movement has become the largest mass movement in world history, from my understanding, because there were people in countries all around the world, places you wouldn't even think, focused on police accountability, who were taking to the streets, taking to the halls of power, and demanding accountability. I don't think we ever anticipated seeing anything of that magnitude like what we witnessed. And I've had a lot of international publications reaching out in recent days wanting to provide an update for their communities because they're still paying attention to what has happened 5 years later.
Speaking of an update, Tabitha Montgomery, who is the executive director of the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association, delighted to have her on this program in this hour. Again, back to this notion of update. I had, as I mentioned earlier, Keith Ellison, the Minnesota AG, Haley's boss, as our lead guest on this program yesterday. And I asked him, Tabitha, whether or not 5 years later, if I were going to move to Minneapolis as a black man, I'd be safe. Am I safer now in Minneapolis as a black man than I might have been 5 years ago? And Keith Ellison said, I think so, Tavis. And he went on to unpack why he sort of felt that way, although there's still work to be done. Never mind what Nekima laid out earlier in terms of the federal government, the Department of Justice turning its back on this consent decree in Minneapolis. But I asked Keith Ellison whether or not I'd be safer as a black man in Minneapolis 5 years later. Keith is my friend, my dear friend and my brother, but I recognize he's an elected official, and so he gave me the answer that he gave me. I'm asking you that same question, Tabitha, because you're on the street level, and I want to know from you whether or not, as a black man, I'm safer in Minneapolis now than I might have been 5 years ago.
Honestly, I would say it's hard to judge, but likely not. And why I say that, it's not because the community is not holding itself in a posture of, and when I say the community, meaning the average resident, the average person, even elected leaders in the city of Minneapolis, it's not because the moment did not require us all to desire to be better. It's simply, Tavis, in my opinion, is because I'm confident all the right medicine has not been applied for us all to be well. So in order to get past this moment, it requires resources. Do I think that enough resources has been allocated to community for us to have different systems in place so that we're not over-reliant on policing that may never be able to be transformed, even if people believe that transformation is possible? I love the question that Haley raised before, is will we ever see justice? Justice in the current systems, maybe not, because I think the current systems that we've inherited, whether it be policing or healthcare or academia, has a certain threshold of being able to change what it is. We need new things to put pressure on what is, and that requires resources. And so it would be, I think, a bit disingenuous for me to say, yes, I think that I could right now tell a person who always has had to hold their race and ethnicity as a part of how they consider how they move in the world, where they go, what corners they can stand on, what they say. If they look too impoverished, that might mean that someone with power believes that they are an easy target. If I were to say that those people should feel more safe, I think that that would be a bit disingenuous, because I am confident that the resources that we need in our communities to construct new systems of well-being and support, this is not to say that existing systems would automatically go away or not needed, but we need what I would call an equal and opposite response to what is. We spend so much time trying to fix that which we've inherited that most of us never wanted. And we somehow are mystified that it can't become better. It's often shocks me when we think about sometimes social media, and we want social media to be better at not creating environments of bullying, of not being on the surface. It is certainly a powerful tool and one that we should not walk away from, but we have to remember how it was born. Judging and rating women on a college campus. And so I just think that sometimes we have to be able to declare that the amount of resources that we need to create something that can create an equal and opposite response to what most of us inherited that we never wanted is how we become better in part.
Let me take
we cannot deny that.
I receive that. Let me take your use of the word resources a few times now and tweak it if I can, as a quick follow-up to you, Tabitha, and then I want to go back to Haley. When I'm thinking of resources, I'm thinking of all these promises that were made 5 years ago. Indeed, by major corporations that are headquartered in Minnesota. I ain't calling no names, Target. But all these promises made 5 years ago. Talk to me 5 years later about promises made and promises not being kept when you talk, Tabitha, about resources.
Yeah. Generally speaking, the moment of impact is when you can be most courageous. Whether that be when we look at the history of the 16th Street Baptist Church, whether we look at Stonewall Inn, whether we look at the occupation of Wounded Knee, at the point of impact, you can be most courageous with your words in terms of what you're willing to give for the thing to stop.
That's right.
And then we often find it difficult to resource beyond the headlines. Once the headlines stop rolling, how do you maintain the commitment? I'm not necessarily saying that no commitment was honored. What I am saying is that certainly the things that were stated that we believed at the time as a part of the community would be an ongoing, unequivocal investment that would only grow, not retreat or subside. And so the idea that even 5 years after the point of impact that we would have made tremendous progress, I question that wholly, because any degree of progress that we're talking about, that I think that this particular panel has been brought to reflect, just simply have to acknowledge the amount of intransient and intrinsic issues that we have as a society as it relates to race and ethnicity and culture and ability and gender identity, any of the things that we use as crutches to act as if we are not wedded together in this ecosystem of humanity, requires decade upon decade to be able to marshal the resources to put forward an equal and opposite response to what we all have inherited.
Nope, I hear that. I hear that loud and clear. Tabitha put her finger on this a moment ago, and she's right. Haley Taylor Schlitz raised some powerful questions a moment ago. As a matter of fact, I almost got offended. I said, Haley trying to take my job. And she has a job already in the AG's office, posing these rich and powerful questions. When we come forward, I want to go back to Haley and give her a chance to answer some of the questions that she posed, not at all rhetorically. She asked moments ago whether or not local elections matter. I want to go there. But more than just local elections, does videotape matter? I don't know how Gen Z that is, sees local elections these days in terms of their import, how they see videotape in terms of its import. We had video in the murder of George Floyd, and it got him convicted. But now Donald Trump is torn with the idea of pardoning Derek Chauvin. We had video in the case of Tyree Nichols, and yet a jury in Chattanooga outside of Memphis the other day decided that those officers should not be held accountable, just ignoring everything we saw on videotape. We talked to Ben Crump about that a little bit earlier in today's program. So I want to get a sense of what, not that Haley speaks for the entire generation, but what does matter? Do elections matter to this generation? Does videotape matter to this generation? Does anything matter? Do their lives matter? Do they feel like their lives matter? A lot more to cover with Haley Taylor Schlitz, Tabitha Montgomery, and Nekima Levy Armstrong. What an all-star roundtable I'm blessed to be in the midst of right now on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The U.S. Attorney General says the death penalty is possible for Elias Rodriguez, accused of killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers in D.C.
I was on the phone with Donald Trump all evening long. All evening, he called me first thing this morning. He is horrified by what happened.
Pam Bondi, in contact with President Trump, says he supports seeking the penalty if warranted. Rodriguez allegedly shouted "Free Palestine" during his arrest. Rapper Kid Cudi is testifying in Sean Diddy Combs' sex crimes trial in New York City. Cudi is answering questions about his relationship with Diddy's ex, Cassie Ventura Fine. Combs faces life in prison for sex trafficking and other charges. And a rare May nor'easter is soaking the Northeast with heavy rain and increasing winds. Flooding has hit Pittsburgh, and flash flood warnings are in effect for parts of New England, including Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maine. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Once upon a time, the Clippers had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on their roster. He played in all 82 games for the Clippers as a rookie in the 2018-19 season. 6 years later, Gilgeous-Alexander was voted the NBA's most valuable player. The Oklahoma City guard led the NBA in scoring this season with a 32.7 average and was a major reason OKC had the NBA's best record at 68-14. Forgive me for bringing up a bad memory. In 2019, the Clippers traded Gilgeous-Alexander and 7 first-round picks to OKC for Paul George, who's now in Philadelphia. OKC and Minnesota play Game 2 tonight in the Western Conference Finals. OKC is up 1-0. In the East, Indiana broke down New York with a 138-135 win in overtime in Game 1. The Knicks had an 8-point lead with 41 seconds left in the fourth quarter. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again. Holla.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast.
Oh my God.
But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say.
Let's do this.
Let's get it on. On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the 2nd consecutive year with our Climate Justice Plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, talk about.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There will be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA.
Love you. Love you.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Nekima Levy Armstrong, Tabitha Montgomery, and Haley Taylor Schlitz. Nekima is the founder of the Racial Justice Network. Tabitha is executive director of the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association. And Haley Taylor Schlitz is an attorney in the office of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who successfully brought the case against Derek Chauvin and those cops who stood around and did nothing 5 years ago on May 25th when they suffocated the life out of George Floyd. It's been 5 years, believe it or not, and for the last couple of days we've been engaged in a number of conversations making sure that we do not forget. Somebody said never forget, and we intend to do just that, never forget. We were honored to have Keith Ellison on, the Minnesota AG yesterday, had been Crump on earlier today. We have the former police chief, Chief Rondo, on in our 3rd and final hour today, but I'm delighted again to be in this conversation, this roundtable with these 3 brilliant sisters right about now, trying to assess what has happened, what has not happened, and what needs to happen 5 years after the murder of George Floyd. So Haley, let me come back to you right quick, because you posed some powerful questions earlier, and I want to just put these questions back to you. And I guess broadly speaking, and I'll give you all the canvas you need to illustrate as you will, to paint as you will. But what does matter 5 years later to Gen Z? Do local elections matter? Does videotape of these murders actually matter? Do they feel like their lives matter? Not asking you to speak for the entire generation, but just talk to me 5 years later from your vantage point about what really does matter these days.
You know, and I'm glad that you're asking, because I think that really is the conversation. You know, we see the Trump administration's move to dismiss the federal consent decree between them and the Minneapolis Police Department to just ensure better policing and safety for all. And, I want to stress the importance of the Minneapolis and local reform that has been done. Even if the Trump administration walks away from that decree, there is still a local decree with the police department and local and state levels. So we're still able to hold the police department accountable, and we're still able to make that progress. And of course, that doesn't mean you don't need the same wavelength from the federal level, and it doesn't mean you don't keep fighting for the federal level. But to answer your question, yes, local elections and federal elections, but local elections matter. They matter to Gen Z, and I've seen that and speaking with my generation, and of course they matter to the generations before and after Gen Z as well. And I know sometimes, like I said, people get tired of hearing that you need to vote in all elections, you need to vote in local elections, but truly, without the election of Governor Walz or without my boss, Attorney General Keith Ellison, we would not have seen the reform or accountability of the consent decree that was created by the state. And we wouldn't have seen, the lawsuits that we saw after George Floyd's murder, or the work that's being done in response to the Trump administration now. And those kinds of things, and I think those kinds of things are inspiring Gen Z. I think a lot of people forget that Gen Z is still 13. So most of us still cannot even vote. And so I think that as we come of age, like I was mentioning earlier, in this duality and in this conflict, we're definitely going to lean into the structure and how we can make it a difference, how we can make it different and really meet the needs of Gen Z is the most diverse generation this country's ever seen, the first majority minority generation this country's ever seen. How can we fix it, if it can be, to truly serve a new America? Like Tabitha was saying earlier, there's going to be some things that were built on bones and slave backs that are just really not going to work for what America we see today. But there are things that we can do to move the needle forward in the structures that exist and really make it a place that's accepting for all of America. And I think that part of that and part of the response we see from Gen Z as well is we see young people running for local office. And I want to emphasize, and for anyone listening, especially my generation, the crucial need to have intergenerational dialogue.
Yes.
It's really, really important to understand that the wisdom and the learned experiences that come before us is something we can pull on and that we need to lean into and work with in order to truly make progress. Otherwise, the mistakes will be repeated, and progress will be stagnant. And to answer the second part of your video, and I think that this does relate to progress, is the video and social media. On one hand, I think social media has been such an incredible connecting tool for my generation and everyone obviously alive, but for the generation to grow up in this day and age of social media and technology and video recordings and that kind of thing. I think it really has shaped who Gen Z is. I have friends across the globe, and it's so interesting to be able to hear what is happening in Palestine, or what's happening in Africa, or what's happening in South America, and from the lived first person experience, you're really going to be able to get a level of news that you couldn't get before. And that comes also with videotaping. The part of the ability to spark outrage and organize was being able to see George Floyd take his last breaths, plead for his mother. Those kinds of things are a different type of spark and flame that you could spark and that you can ignite in the community that didn't necessarily exist, at least in the same way, before we had videotape, before we had social media. But it's important to remember that social media also gives people with misinformation a voice as well. So you need to be able to fact check. There's going to be deep fake. That's going to be an issue. So as technology evolves, I think that we're going to have to be super mindful of how it's used, and in fact checking and resource checking. And I think that it's easy to be siloed with social media as well. So, to not be too long-winded, but to answer your question, I think that the things I would emphasize, at least for as perspective of Gen Z myself, but I think a lot of Gen Z would resonate, is first that intergenerational connection. We're definitely care about elections and leaning into, taking this torch and what we've been handed, but knowing that great trees like Maya Angelou, Attorney General Ellison, Governor Walz, and more are people who have resources and wisdom, and we can take our energy and carry that forward. And also being able to know that also is a two-way street, and working with, generations before us work with us to teach us the lessons learned. And also social media is going to be a strong tool in that progress. And in fighting against the hopelessness that we may feel and moving justice forward.
One of the other questions that Haley raised earlier, Nekima, and I didn't take it as a rhetorical question. In fact, I want to give you a chance to drill down on it. This question she posed was whether or not justice will ever be served. Will justice ever truly be served? We sit for this conversation while Donald Trump ponders whether or not to pardon Derek Chauvin. Thankfully, even if he does decide to do that, after having his Justice Department turn its back on police accountability in cities all across the country, in Minnesota, they'll just transfer Derek Chauvin to a state prison. He's going to serve out that 22 years anyway. So at least there's a backstop, and that's why Ben Crump said on our program earlier today, with black people, when it comes to justice, you got to double down. You need state charges and federal charges in case one of them goes awry. So this question of whether or not justice will truly be served is resonant with me. And here's why. Because I'm thinking about so many African Americans historically, Nekima, who just gave up on America. They just gave up. They just didn't think that America was a place where justice for us would ever truly be served. That's why Du Bois went to Ghana. It's why James Baldwin went to France. It's why Randall Robinson went to St. Kitts. If I had time, I could run a long list of people. I just had a conversation not too long ago with a number of black expats, black folk who are living outside of the country now because they just don't think, again, to that not at all rhetorical question that Haley posed earlier, that justice will ever truly be served in this country for black people. That's my setup. That's my frame. Take it, Nekima.
Well, I think that it is a powerful and important question, but I think embedded within that question is us understanding that it's not these elected officials who've been named that have brought about justice. It's been the people taking to the streets to bring about justice, activating and organizing and having to challenge these very same elected officials, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, to do their jobs. That's one of the constant struggles that we face as black people in this country when we are trying to demand justice. It's not that the laws are not there in some of the circumstances. It's the lack of political will to enforce the laws on the books and to enforce them in an equitable manner. So that is a part of our struggle. And if you look at what has happened historically, the goalpost always seems to be moved when it comes to black folks demanding justice. I think about the folks who fought for an end to chattel slavery in this country. And after years and years and years of putting their bodies on the line, protesting, disrupting, doing all the tactics that they could to push for an end to slavery, what did Congress do? They enacted the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. What is embedded in the 13th Amendment? It purports to abolish slavery. I'm paraphrasing, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall be allowed except if one has been duly convicted of a crime. So if there was any intentionality around getting justice for us, there would not be a caveat in the 13th Amendment that opens the door to a new form of slavery for black people, which we have seen proliferate through the criminal justice system, through what is happening with policing in our communities, looking at what Donald Trump has done recently, which is repeal the federal 1033 program, which allows the transfer of military weapons from our military to local law enforcement officers. It is almost impossible for us to have full justice in this country. And the people you named, Tavis, knew that and made a decision that they were going to cut their losses and enjoy the rest of their lives instead of continuing to fight an uphill battle in this country. You're right about that. When we come forward, I want to go straight to Tabitha Montgomery and stay on this note that we are wrestling with right now, and that is how you sustain your hope when there is hopelessness in the air. I mean, we're talking about the murder of George Floyd 5 years ago, but think about all the cases, all the murders, all the maiming, all the suffocating of black life since George Floyd was murdered 5 years ago. And that's how you end up in a state of hopelessness. And so I want to go straight to Tabitha when we come forward and ask her in that frame, in that kind of scenario, in this kind of culture, how do we sustain our hope? That's the question for Tabitha when Tavis comes forward.
From the Mert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
BET and PBS, the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and NPR, the cover of Jet and the cover of Time. #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list, 20 honorary doctorate degrees, a dozen NAACP Image Awards, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. From talk shows to talk radio, nobody's ever done it better. You like that? This is Tavis Smiley.
The Peace Lily is so last year. Hey, has anyone worked with fiddlenecks?
Shelby's popular flower shop is in full bloom.
We just got a request for an arrangement that evokes air. Who's up for that challenge? No?
She needs to hire a floral designer to nip foliage faux pas in the bud.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our advanced matching helps find talented candidates so you can connect with them fast. Redeem your $75 credit at Indeed.com/credit. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
My time is getting tight, but I'm delighted to be in conversation with Nekima Levy Armstrong, Tabitha Montgomery, Haley Taylor Schlitz. Glad to have them all on this program in this hour as we reflect on the murder of George Floyd 5 years later, May 25th to be exact. In a moment like this, Tabitha, just again watching my time, how do we sustain our hope?
You got to fight like hell to build the muscle to know who you are so that you are capable of seeing who everybody else is and then navigate accordingly. I think certainly for me, it is understanding that I was born in love. My sole purpose is to love in this world. And so it's incumbent upon me to look at the world through not rose-colored glasses, but to understand who people are and believe them when they tell you, and then to fight like hell for their behavior not to change my behavior, so that my love and my willingness to serve and my willingness to be in community shoulder to shoulder with other people when the call is needed for us to call out for justice. Because justice, quite frankly, building on this other comments that my other cohorts and guests have made, is possible, but certainly I'm clear that in my skin, in all the ways that I identify, it is not because I will ever not need to demand it. And so my hope is just in understanding who I am and leaning into that. It's not because it is a guarantee that changes any of the conditions, but that's where the hope is that I am leaning into who I am so that I can see everyone else clearly, and so that I understand that I have accepted and made peace with what it is my work to do, which is to love on everybody as well as I can. So hopefully that creates the ripple effect of how we all stay knitted together and not keep trying to tear each other apart at the seams.
Tabitha could not be more correct. Power concedes nothing without a demand. There's that word, demand. It never has, and it never will. And our remaining moments with Nekima and Tabitha and Haley. Here's the exit question. You heard Tabitha mention earlier in this conversation that there's a lot she has seen, a lot to be concerned about, a lot to be traumatized by, but a lot that she has seen that has made her feel encouraged and supported, seen, and inspired. So I want to ask each of our guests when we come forward in just a few minutes to go here to give me one example of something they have seen over the last 5 years that does encourage them, that does make them feel supported and inspired, even as we commemorate the tragic death of George Floyd 5 years later. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Barbecue season is back. Hey, it's Ellen.
And this is Sarah Beth.
And a little thing we love about the Chick-fil-A Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich is that zesty barbecue sauce. I love that it was a little sweet, a little tangy, and with the mac and cheese.
I feel like I tasted the brown sugar bacon first. It was the absolute best combination. Pro tip, 3 sandwiches are always better than 1.
Order the Smokehouse Barbecue Bacon Sandwich and our Coca-Cola on the Chick-fil-A app for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
I've got 3 minutes left in this conversation, a tight 3. That means 1 minute per person. I start with you, Haley. What have you seen over the last 5 years, never mind all the trauma, that inspires you, that encourages you 5 years after the murder of George Floyd?
And I love that you're asking this question because the question itself inspires me. I'm inspired by history and our ancestors who didn't stop fighting when times were worse, and by those who continue to fight. I love the question, has justice been served? And in some ways, yes. In many ways, no. But what gives me hope about this is that the people haven't stopped. And that's a huge lesson that history has taught us, and that we were raised in the glow of Black excellence and in the glare of violence. And we've grown up learning that Black visibility isn't always the same as Black safety, but we're not hopeless. We're strategic. We know the system won't fix itself, so we're working to replace it with one that actually values our lives. And I think the questions we'll continue to ask ourselves is, what actions are we taking to build intentional bridges between generations and communities? And what are we doing to demand change?
Yeah. Tabitha, Rufus and Jaka Khan said, tell me something good. So tell me something good, Tabitha.
Every single soul, every single offering that has helped to steward and to acknowledge the magnitude of the moment at George Floyd Square. It has to be in the hundreds of thousands. Shout out to Janelle Austin, co-founder of Rise and Remember, and Angela Harrelson, George Floyd's aunt. But I tell you what, every single person who knew enough to acknowledge the magnitude of the moment, you have my abiding appreciation and certain gratitude for helping us to all understand how to navigate moments that really require us to find the very best in us.
Yeah. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is still stalled in Congress, and yet we got to find some reason to believe, some way to sustain our hope. So tell me something good, Nekima.
Honestly, I think back to what happened in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014 after Mike Brown was killed.
Yeah.
I don't think I have ever had so much hope as seeing people rise up and resist. And my time in Ferguson is what took me from being a lawyer and an academic to a street-level activist, seeing the resilience of our people, the organizing power of our people, seeing people fight back in the face of vicious police attacks and rubber bullets and tear gas, and getting back up in the spirit of our ancestors and going back at it again.
Yeah.
And that change that happened in Ferguson helped as the catalyst for what we experienced in Minneapolis in 2020 and what other communities around the country experienced since then. So I have to lift them up because they helped set the spark to get us here 5 years after George Floyd, where we still have hope in the midst of everything that we're experiencing.
It's hard to imagine that we could have done better in this hour with the panel that we assembled. And so I thank my team for assembling this panel. More to the point, I thank the panelists themselves for agreeing to talk to me for an hour. I am forever indebted. Nekima Levy Armstrong, I love you. Thank you for your time. Good to have you back on this program again.
I love you too, Tavis.
Tabitha Montgomery, what a great honor for me to have been introduced to you this way in this conversation. I deeply appreciate your insights. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
Likewise, Tavis. Appreciate you deeply.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot to me. And Haley Taylor Schlitz, good to have you back on this program after having your boss on yesterday. You're doing well, and we are proud of you and what you're doing as a young sister in that AG's office and the work you're doing outside the office. So good to have you back on the program, and all the best to you as well.
Thank you for having me back. You're an inspiration to all of us.
You are very kind to say that. Thank you. I thank Nekima, I thank Tabitha, I thank Haley, and I thank you for listening to this roundtable conversation in this hour as we look back on the murder, the tragic murder of George Floyd 5 years ago. In our final hour today, looking back 5 years ago, we'll talk to Chief Rondo about his new book, He Was the Police Chief, and all this went down in Minneapolis. You'll hear him in his own words when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The U.S. Attorney General says the death penalty is possible for Elias Rodriguez, accused of killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers in D.C.
I was on the phone with Donald Trump all evening long. All evening, he called me first thing this morning. He is horrified by what happened.
Pam Bondi, in contact with President Trump, says he supports seeking the penalty if warranted. Rodriguez allegedly shouted "Free Palestine" during his arrest. Rapper Kid Cudi is testifying in Sean Diddy Combs' sex crimes trial in New York City. Cudi is answering questions about his relationship with Diddy's ex, Cassie Ventura Fine. Combs faces life in prison for sex trafficking and other charges. And a rare May nor'easter is soaking the Northeast with heavy rain and increasing winds. Flooding has hit Pittsburgh, and flash flood warnings are in effect for parts of New England, including Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maine. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Once upon a time, the Clippers had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on their roster. He played in all 82 games for the Clippers as a rookie in the 2018-19 season. 6 years later, Gilgeous-Alexander was voted the NBA's most valuable player. The Oklahoma City guard led the NBA in scoring this season with a 32.7 average and was a major reason OKC had the NBA's best record at 68-40. 14. Forgive me for bringing up a bad memory. In 2019, the Clippers traded Gilgeous-Alexander and 7 first-round picks to OKC for Paul George, who's now in Philadelphia. OKC and Minnesota play Game 2 tonight in the Western Conference Finals. OKC is up 1-0. In the East, Indiana broke down New York with a 138-135 win in overtime in Game 1. The Knicks had an 8-point lead with 41 seconds left in the fourth quarter. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Pastor and Mrs. William Sachs Epps on their retirement from stewardship at the historic Second Baptist Church. Dr. Epps has faithfully served Second Baptist as its senior pastor for 37 years. What a legacy of love and leadership. Pastor and Mrs. Epps will be honored at a luncheon on Saturday, July 26, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Sheraton Universal Hotel in Universal City, and you're invited to attend. Noted scholar Dr. Michael Eric Dyson is the keynote speaker. For ticket information, please contact epsretirement@gmail.com or call 213-399-2103. That's epsretirement@gmail.com or call 213-399-2103. To Pastor Epps and First Lady Epps, congratulations from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
To do to survive. I'm not saying what I did was all right. Trying to break out of the ghetto was a day-to-day fight. Being down so long, getting up didn't cross my mind. But I knew there was a better way of life, and I was just trying to find. You don't know what you do till you put under pressure. Cross 110th Street is a hell of a tester. Across 110th Street, pimps trying to catch a woman that's weak. Across 110th Street, pushers won't let the junkie go free.
I'm Tavis Smiley, delighted to have you with us in this hour of our program. And in this hour, as promised, a conversation with the man who was chief of police when they suffocated George Floyd 5 years ago. He has authored a new book called Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. And I'm anxious to hear the backstory of what happened 5 years ago from Chief Rondo. Chief, congrats on the book. Good to have you on this program. How are you today, sir?
Thank you so much, sir. And it's an honor and privilege to be on this show with your listeners today. I'm doing well. Thank you, and I hope you are as well.
I am doing well. If I complained, I'd be an ingrate, and I'm delighted to have you. Delighted to have you on this program. Let me start. We have spent the better part of this show talking about the murder of George Floyd 5 years ago. We've had some great guests on this program today, including Ben Crump, of course, the attorney for the family. We had Keith Ellison, the AG. In Minnesota on this program yesterday, an amazing roundtable of community voices, all reflecting on what happened 5 years ago. Before I get into the book and what was happening behind the scenes 5 years ago, let me just ask you the same question I've asked of others on this program today, and that is how you feel, how are you processing the murder of George Floyd 5 years later?
That's a great question, and I was thinking about this just yesterday. And I'm from Minneapolis, born and raised, and I was actually born a block from where Mr. Floyd was killed. It's a lot of emotions. It's the emotions where in some aspects I want to continue to make sure that his killing was not, his death was not in vain. I want to continue to see his family and little Gianna heal. But I also know that we as a nation continue to struggle with this moral reckoning, and certainly when it comes to policing in America and race. And so and I'm sure we'll have some conversation about it, but as we hear rumors of pardons and certainly DOJ suspending, helping to enforce some of the practices that our communities have been pleading for decades. I know, sir, there's much more work that needs to be done, but I remain hopeful. And I'm someone who was raised, hope isn't a mood, it's a practice. And so each and every day with my breath, I want to continue to make sure that I instill hope, particularly for our children and for our future. So it's reflection, and it's making sure that I'm doing all that I can in the time that I have to make sure that I'm making the space better. Because to me, justice should never be optional. And I owe that to Mr. Floyd. I owe that to his family. And I certainly owe that to our people across this country.
So from that question about what your thoughts and reflections are 5 years later to this, take me back 5 years ago. This is detailed in the text, and we'll work through this book as we move through this hour. But just but briefly and quickly here, take me back 5 years ago. You are the chief of police, and obviously your cops, your officers are on duty all day long, all over the city doing what they do. Give me a sense of when you first heard about this incident. Where were you? What were you doing when news came to you as the chief of police that this was all unfolding on this block, 1 block away from where you were born?
Yes, sir. I remember it very well. It was approximately 8 p.m. It was a warm Monday, Memorial Day on Monday, and I was actually at home at the time. I received a call from one of my deputy chiefs that said, Chief Rondo, we have officers who were just out at 38th in Chicago dealing with the subject. And I use the word subject because at that time, Mr. Floyd was not identified yet by name,
right,
but said they were dealing with an adult male subject at that intersection. And at some point in time during trying to take him into arrest, that subject had a medical emergency. He was
reported to our level 1 trauma center now, but Chief, they don't believe he's going to make it. Now, once I hear that, and I believe that, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead. We hear you.
Okay. Yep. And once I hear that, there's a notification process that goes into play when we have what we call an in custody death. I head to City Hall, my office, and I start making notifications to our mayor. And there's just a series of things. The officers that are involved are being photographed. They're making a brief public safety statement. And that's how there was nothing. Obviously, you're concerned whenever there's an in custody death, but there was nothing that was so alarming where I was thinking there's something more to this.
So initially it was tragic, to be sure, but initially it was rather routine. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can describe it as that. Yes.
Yeah.
And then about midnight, I'm still in my office in City Hall, and everyone had gone home at this time. And that's when I received a call around midnight from Miss Nekima, who is, as you've had her on the show, she is a prominent community justice advocate and activist in our city. And we've had a relationship that extends back for several years. And when I saw her call me at midnight, that was a little bit unusual, but I answered her call, and the first call she made, she said, Rondo, did someone die or was someone killed at 38th in Chicago? And so again, I knew we had an in custody death out there, but the way in her inflection and tone in her voice, I said, we had this medical emergency where someone died, but no one was killed there. She says, I'm going to call you right back.
Hold that thought. I want to hear when we come forward what happens when Nekima, who we just had on this program, calls Chief Rondo back. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. If you own a timeshare, don't miss this public service announcement from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. If you really want out of your timeshare, hang the phone up immediately or throw that mail piece in the trash and contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance with your timeshare. As the only Inc. 500 timeshare cancellation company, our knowledge, experience, and results has made Wesley a trusted resource for over 40,000 families we've helped get out of their timeshare. Give us a call and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit, 800-511-2112. That's 800-511-2112. 800-511-2112.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
You really about to do it? 40 acres and a mule. This is bigger than the music. You really about to do it? Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
Who among us doesn't like black music? But Kendrick is right. This moment is so much bigger than music. These are serious times. We've got serious problems, and we need serious people who understand that slogans are not solutions. When you want substantial and sober analysis about things that matter to you and the ones you love, this is where you turn. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Baby!
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Chief Rondo, the former Minneapolis police chief, when they suffocated and murdered George Floyd 5 years ago on May 25th. His new book is called Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd, and I am blessed, honored, in fact, to have him on this program for the hour. I thank him once again for considering us and giving us the time on this day when everybody else is pulling at him to talk about what happened 5 years ago. So Nekima Levy Armstrong, a dear friend of mine, was just a guest on this program literally moments ago before we started this conversation with you. So Nekima calls you around midnight to ask you a question. She gets off the phone and says, "Let me call you right back." What happens when Nekima calls you back the second time, Chief?
Well, when she calls me back that second time, she says, "Have you seen the video of your officer kneeling on that man's neck and killing him?" And clearly I had not. And she said, "I'm going to send it to you right now." And so she proceeds to send me what now the world knows is the courageous video taken by Miss Darnella Frazier, the teenager at the time.
Sure.
And I will tell you, I watched that video and I had served for 3 decades, and that my heart sunk. I can't even viscerally tell you how I felt when I saw that, but I will tell you when I saw Mr. Floyd pleading in begging for one of those men in uniform wearing a badge to help him. And his cries and his pleas went unanswered. It ripped my heart out from me. And I will tell you, I knew after watching it just the first time, obviously I watched it several times that evening, but after watching it the first time, I knew that it was forever changed me, it was going to forever change our city, certainly the department. But I also knew it was going to have an impact on our country, our nation, but I did not know to the depth in terms of how it would resonate and how people would react to it.
As the chief of police, and I've had the honor of talking to many over the course of my career, as you can imagine, in cities all across this country and for that matter around the world. But as a police chief, your initial instinct, I suspect, is to always give your officers the benefit of the doubt. That's what we hear when departments make these statements when something is breaking that, we have to do an investigation. We don't want to get in front of the investigation. I can only tell you what I know at this point. And so you want to just, you want to keep your powder dry until you get a chance to really figure out what happened. I get the sense reading your book and listening to you now. I get the sense, and if I'm wrong, feel free to disabuse me of this notion. But my sense, again, reading and listening to you, is that when you watched that video 1, 2, 3, 4 times, you knew then that your officers had, I'll just use the word, misbehaved. Tell me if I'm onto something or if I'm completely off base here.
Sir, you are absolutely right, and I will tell you, and I didn't need to see that video 50 times. I didn't need long, lengthy processes, investigations. My eyes did not deceive me. And I remember standing before the public and calling what it was, and that was murder, sir. And so our values have to mean something, and humanity and decency have to mean something. And I wore that uniform and badge proudly, serving my community for 32 years. No badge is above accountability. And the actions of Derek Chauvin that day and the officers that did not stop him from murdering Mr. Floyd, that can never be tolerated. Yeah. And to me, they forfeited their right to ever call themselves public servants.
Yeah. Was that a process? Again, I was anxious to read about this part in the book. I wanted to know for myself whether or not for you it was a process of coming to a decision to come out publicly almost immediately and to call it, as you did, murder. It was courageous to my mind. And I said, I asked myself, who's this Rondo guy? Look, I said, good Lord, you never see police chiefs do that, certainly not so early on. But you called it exactly what it was. But you had to know, given that you've done this you had done it for a few decades at that point, as you mentioned, you had to know that the minute that the chief comes out and calls it murder, your rank and file, certainly many of them, some of them, are going to say you abandoned them. You threw them under the bus.
Yes.
And that's why I asked whether or not it was a process for you to come to that, or is that just your humanity speaking?
I think it's really my humanity, and I will also just tell you this, sir. I'm a representation of my dear mother and father.
Oh, yeah.
I'm blessed that they're still with me today. But there is no way, after watching that video, I could look them in the eye and claim to be their son and not have called that for what it was. And I have children myself, and there's no way as a father I could look them in the eye and have not have acted. And so I will say this to the other point to your question, which is a great question. I also know that time was not on my side, meaning that, a major city chief, their shelf life in the United States is about 3.5 years, and that's if everything goes well.
Yeah.
So the second call, sir, that I made after Miss Nekima called me, and I thank her to this day for making that call to me, was I called our special agent in charge, headquartered in Minneapolis, and I woke him up out of bed about 1 a.m. And I told him, and he was groggy when I called, but I said, I need you to dispatch your agents to 38th Chicago now, because what I just witnessed on a video, I believe strongly that one of my officers just violated this man's civil rights. And I give him credit, that agent, special agent in charge. He said, Rondo, if you're calling me at 1 a.m, I know it ain't good. He had not even seen the video yet, but he dispatched those agents. And I will tell you strategically why I made that other call, because I know the history of these police-related killings in our country, and they don't often lead to justice in our state courts. And so I wanted to at least assure that whatever I could do in terms of a sense of justice for the Floyd family was to at least get two parallel investigations going, one from the state criminal proceeding part and the other from a federal civil rights standpoint. And so that was the second call, and it was very strategic that I made. I mean, it was clearly he violated Mr. Floyd's constitutional rights under color of law. So that was the call I made. But then after that, I made a call to 32 of our Black community leaders, elders, and activists to meet me in my office tomorrow morning, bright and early, to share this tragic news with them, because I knew that there could be chaos or community. I leaned towards community, and I wanted to make sure that they were informed, that they heard it by me. Remember, I did not get the accurate first account of what happened to Mr. Floyd, so they needed to hear directly from me. And so those were critical moments and hours right after I had learned of Mr. Floyd's killing.
I could have asked you this question earlier, but I want to ask you it now. I saw that videotape, as we all did, once or twice, and after that, I couldn't take it anymore. I know folk have seen it many, many times, but after one or two times, I just couldn't take it, particularly when he gets to the point of calling out for his mama. His mother, of course, his mother was already deceased, and you must be in a particularly bad situation when you calling out for your mama who's already dead.
Absolutely.
And I think of the deep love that I have for my mother. As a matter of fact, somebody once asked me in an interview, I was being interviewed, and somebody asked me, if you were about to take your last breath, what is the last thing you'd want to hear? I don't know if they thought I was going to say I wanted to hear a song or I wanted to hear this or that or the other. I said the last thing I want to hear if I'm taking my last breath is the voice of my mother. That's the last thing I want to hear is my mama's voice on my way out of here, on my way out, if I have a choice.
Absolutely.
So here he is calling for, and you mentioned, of course, your precious mother moments ago in this conversation. So here you are watching this videotape, and I'm looking at it from my vantage point, but I'm not the chief of police. As the chief of police, when you saw that videotape 1, 2, 3 times, what did you see? I'm asking that question specifically because I want to know what your eyes saw. You're the chief of police. What did you see when you saw that videotape?
I saw a human being that was discarded as if they were trash, quite frankly. I saw such a callous indifference on the face of Derek Chauvin. I mean, I still look back at that video to the point where it almost appears as if he's sitting on a lazy boy. He's comfortable without a care in the world of robbing the last breaths of this human being's life, and with no fear whatsoever of any consequences. Remember, there are 6 or 7 citizens at the corner within feet from him, pleading. One is an EMS, a paramedic, pleading if they can intervene to help him, or at least please turn him over, give him some air. And there was just an indifference with the authority that he had that day, that, by the way, is granted by the people. And that's what I saw. But I will tell you what I also knew is that as long as I was still in that role as chief, I was going to make sure that that moment that I was going to do everything to make sure we were on the right side of history. I was going to do everything that I could to make sure, again, that justice was not going to be optional for Mr. Floyd, that he was going to receive, he was a victim. Make no bones about it. Mr. Floyd was a victim, and I'm duty bound by my humanity, by decency, and certainly by the oath I took make sure that I did everything I could to see that he received justice.
No, I love how swiftly you moved after getting that call from Nekima and Nekima sending you the videotape. I love how swiftly you moved to call those 30-plus community leaders to meet you in your office immediately the next morning so that you could talk to them directly. That's real leadership. That's what I call servant leadership. So I love the way you moved so swiftly in that moment. But here's my question. Were you ever concerned, Chief Rondo, in those early hours that your city might explode?
I wasn't well, let me just say this here. I wasn't concerned. I knew there was going to be a reaction.
Right.
I absolutely knew there was going to be reaction. But I did not, I didn't have the concern in terms of where that rage was going to be centered. And it wasn't until within the next 24 hours that the magnitude of the anger and the pain that was about to engulf our city that was going to occur. But I knew it was going to, there was going to be a major seismic reaction to his killing.
I asked that question in part because when you see that videotape and you, again, to your point, know there's going to be a seismic response or shift in the city once people get a chance to see this videotape. Typically, you know, let me say not typically. I've seen a lot of police chiefs panic. And because they have a particular point of view about black people in the first place, they just expect we're going to burn it down. And because they believe that already anyway, they start to move in ways that are really counterintuitive. I'm glad you didn't do that, but you see why I asked that question, though.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll say this, and I don't know if Ms. Nekima mentioned this too. The other thing, and I sometimes have to remind myself too, remember, we were in the thralls of a pandemic.
That's right.
Which we had never experienced before. And so many in communities, you know, this was the first time they were actually coming out, gathering in the streets under this pandemic. And so, you know, we didn't know what sort of dynamic that was going to play to it. But I will tell you that folks came out in the thousands all over Minneapolis to demonstrate and protest. And so things happened rapidly that first day.
Yeah. I want to talk about what happens beyond the first day. He was the chief of police when they murdered George Floyd 5 years ago, May 25. He came out early and often with his point of view. And his point of view was, as you heard moments ago, that his officer had indeed murdered George Floyd. His book is called Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. More of our conversation with the former Minneapolis police chief when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The U.S. Attorney General says the death penalty is possible for Elias Rodriguez, accused of killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers in D.C.
I was on the phone with Donald Trump all evening long. All evening, he called me first thing this morning. He is horrified by what happened.
Pam Bondi, in contact with President Trump, says he supports seeking the penalty if warranted. Rodriguez allegedly shouted "Free Palestine" during his arrest. Rapper Kid Cudi is testifying in Sean Diddy Combs' sex crimes trial in New York City. Cudi is answering questions about his relationship with Diddy's ex, Cassie Ventura Fine. Combs faces life in prison for sex trafficking and other charges. And a rare May nor'easter is soaking the Northeast with heavy rain and increasing winds. Flooding has hit Pittsburgh, and flash flood warnings are in effect for parts of New England, including Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maine. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the tether?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Once upon a time, the Clippers had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on their roster. He played in all 82 games for the Clippers as a rookie in the 2018-19 season. 6 years later, Gilgeous-Alexander was voted the NBA's most valuable player. The Oklahoma City guard led the NBA in scoring this season with a 32.7 average and was a major reason OKC had the NBA's best record at 68-14. Forgive me for bringing up a bad memory. In 2019, the Clippers traded Gilgeous-Alexander and 7 first-round picks to OKC for Paul George, who's now in Philadelphia. OKC and Minnesota play Game 2 tonight in the Western Conference Finals. OKC is up 1-0. In the East, Indiana broke down New York with a 138-135 win in overtime in Game 1. The Knicks had an 8-point lead with 41 seconds left in the fourth quarter. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again. Holla.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast.
Oh my God.
But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say. Let's do this.
Let's get it on.
On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the 2nd consecutive year with our Climate Justice Plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, talk about.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There will be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA.
Love you. Love you.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with the former Minneapolis police chief, Chief Rondo, who has a new book out called Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. I am honored to have him on this program as we conclude a number of days in a number of conversations with a number of amazing and all-star guests about the murder of George Floyd 5 years ago. We've been pleased to talk to Keith Ellison, the AG in Minnesota, and Ben Crump, the lawyer for the family, who ultimately secured a $27 million settlement for the Floyd family. You never close on the death of a loved one like you close on a house. But there was some modicum of justice with that settlement with the city. We've had Nekima Levy Armstrong, who is the person who called Chief Rondo to let him know, you need to see this videotape. And, of course, I'm honored again in this hour to be with the chief to hear, in his own words, what happened behind the scenes 5 years ago. Chief, I want to get to the question I raised a moment ago about what happens after that first day. But I'm looking at all these questions that are coming in, comments coming in from listeners all across the country, and for that matter, around the world. And here's a question that just jumped out at me that I want to put to you right quick, and we'll push forward from here. Tavis, would there have been a way that those citizens standing by, referenced earlier by Chief Rondo, was there a way for them to have intervened, either armed or unarmed, that would not have violated the law? I'm thinking, Tavis, of the Black Panther patrols back in Oakland in the day. If so, what do we need to do to empower that kind of response in the future? Chief Rondo?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the things I want to make very clear is those citizens on that street corner, they should never have had to plead with those men in uniform to save Mr. Floyd's life. And I don't want, and I know that the caller who I know the heart of where that question is coming from, because everyone is feeling, if those four men in uniform couldn't have saved Mr. Floyd, well, could we have tried to do something?
That's right.
They should have never been put in that situation.
Yeah.
So I don't put that on them at all. Mm-hmm. Humanity left those four officers that day, and the decency left them. And sadly, the result of that was the killing of Mr. Floyd. So yes, I'm familiar with some of the Black Panther patrols. In Minneapolis, we've had the American Indian Movement patrols. They're still active, the AIM. Right. But again, they should have never have had. And by the way, our duty to intervene policy isn't on citizens. It's on the men and women who wear that uniform. Those other three officers had a sworn duty and obligation when they saw Mr. Floyd dying to intervene and stop that from occurring. And so, yeah.
No, I want to probe this further, because this question from this listener has me thinking, as it does you, obviously. And here's my question. And I take the frame that you've put us in. I receive it, that they should not have been put in that situation. These citizens, it is not their responsibility. They shouldn't have been boxed in that way, as it were. And so we're grateful that there at least is footage that was recorded that allowed us to see what actually happened in that moment. But I'm just curious. You were the police chief then. If those persons on the corner had in fact intervened to save the life of George Floyd, what would have happened to those citizens after that day?
I will tell you this right now. I would have presented each of those citizens with a life-saving plaque, and I would have testified in their defense that they did the right thing when those four officers failed to do theirs.
Wow.
That's what I would have done.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't see that coming, but I appreciate the answer, because I'm thinking the exact opposite, that the police are doing their work and then you jump in, even under the guise of trying to save George Floyd's life, and then you end up getting hemmed up and you end up being arrested, and there's really no way around it because you assaulted an officer, and there are laws on the books about assaulting officers. So I thought the answer might have gone in the other direction.
No, and let me just further expound on that. If a citizen would have done to one of my officers what Derek Chauvin did, so now it's an officer who has a citizen kneeling on his neck like that, and citizens intervened and tackled the person who's doing the most, I would have still given them a plaque and testified on their behalf for saving my officer.
Yeah.
So that's what I would have done.
Yeah. I appreciate that. So we were talking moments ago about the first day, and I just wanted to spend time. And obviously, people can get the book. I encourage them to get the book to read all the detail. I can't do justice to Chief Rondo's book in a 60-minute conversation, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of what he was dealing with as the black police chief in Minneapolis in the early moments of what happened 5 years ago. So you convened this meeting with these community leaders the next day. Just broadly speaking, give me a sense of how those first few days go for you as the police chief when the whole world now has seen this video.
Well, and I should note too that, and I know you know this, but nothing in our community here, certainly in the black community, moves without the black church.
That's right.
So the first calls I made were to our pastors of our black churches here. And I will tell you, when we first met that morning, we prayed, and it was heavy.
Yeah.
It was heavy in that room. Many of those elders of ours, they lived through the Bull Connor era. They certainly lived through the Emmett Till and the 1968 riots that burned sections of North Minneapolis. So they were coming in there with a heart that was heavy anyway. But we needed to mobilize. And I will tell you, when you lead through a crisis, now as much as obviously I'm being impacted by that, I can't operate or lead with emotion. I have to do everything I can to dial in to make sure we are doing everything we can. And I'm doing everything I can to keep my 430,000 bosses, the citizens of Minneapolis, safe. But that requires me to, when you're in those situations as a leader, it's not about control, it's about collaboration. And that's why Miss Nekima was so vitally important. That's why, again, our faith leaders, our activists, and by the way, as black folks, we don't always agree, but we found common ground, and our humanity said, we're going to protect our babies, we're going to protect our elders, we're going to protect this city, and we're going to do all we can to make sure that justice is served, but we're doing it in a way that's uplifting, and we're not tearing down our city and our community. And so that's how I was, I lead with love, I speak with truth, and I got to move with purpose. And so that's what I was focused on the preceding days after he was killed.
Did you ever take any of this personally, which is to say, did you ever feel put upon in that you are the chief of police, these are your officers, and to your point about leadership, the way that the rank and file move is always a reflection on the police chief. So do you ever take this personally in terms of the kinds of officers that you had working your beats?
I retired with integrity and not regrets because I led with my whole heart. Right. But I will say this, looking back 5 years later, what are some of the things I would have did differently? Well, one of the first things I would have did is I would have moved sooner and harder at trying to dismantle some of the toxic culture in that 160-year organization.
Yeah.
Because there was a reason why Derek Chauvin showed the indifference he did to another human being in Mr. Floyd in the first place. I would have invested more time in elevating those voices in our community who for literally decades had been pleading with us to listen and change so that we can have a police department that truly is guardians for us and serves in our best interests. I would have educated our officers more about not just the tactics of policing, but the humanity behind it. And I will also say, as we got through those months, for the first time ever, we rewrote, and I say we, in collaboration with our local NAACP and our urban league, we rewrote our oath of office. That oath of office had stood for 160 years. Clearly, our society has changed over 160 years, but our oath didn't. And you know what was the most radical word we included in that oath of office? It was love.
Wow.
It was love, and it was about we are part of the human family. And so those are the things that I certainly would have done differently. But I can't tell you what's in the heart of Derek Chauvin. To this day, he has not, at least not for me, but to the Floyd family, spoken as to why he did what he did. And we may never know. But I will tell you, the last chapter in my book is dedicated to his daughter, Gianna Floyd, because as a father, I owed it to her to let her know that even though I was not out there that evening, her father was taken from her.
Yeah. There are issues that I want to get Chief Rondo's take on. I've raised these issues, some of these with other guests on this program this week as we've commemorated the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's murder, but I've not had a chance to ask these questions of the former chief, the man who was in charge when they suffocated George Floyd. I do want to ask him about qualified immunity all these years later. That issue still hanging in the balance. Ben Crump, our guest on this program earlier today, is calling for mental health reform in policing beyond changing the oath, as the chief just mentioned. I want to get his take on that. Clearly, I want to get his take on the Justice Department yesterday announcing that in Minneapolis they're getting out of that consent decree, and in other places where they've killed black people, Louisville, Breonna Taylor, and Memphis, Tyree Nichols, the DOJ is now turning its back on police accountability in cities all across the country. And since he mentioned Derek Chauvin, his thoughts on the potentiality of Donald Trump pardoning one Derek Chauvin. So again, a bit more to cover between now and the top of the hour with Chief Rondo. His new book is Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. Delighted to have him right now on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening.
Charitable listening.
It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into... The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into stand-up material live at Inglewood's Miracle Theater on May 31st at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My clinical team will disclose all of your dating woes, while the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady, has hand-selected supremely talented comedians to roast all of our tragic relationship choices. I dare you to bring your ex's phone number because Ray, he's going to text it live and the crowd will be sourcing emojis. Tickets are moving swiftly, so don't hesitate to grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before I diagnose your dating history as a pre-existing condition.
BET and PBS, the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and NPR, the cover of Jet and the cover of Time. #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list, 20 honorary doctorate degrees, a dozen NAACP Image Awards, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. From talk shows to talk radio, nobody's ever done it better. You like that? This is Tavis Smiley.
The Peace Lily is so last year. Hey, has anyone worked with fiddlenecks?
Shelby's popular flower shop is in full bloom.
We just got a request for an arrangement that evokes air. Who's up for that challenge? No?
She needs to hire a floral designer to nip foliage faux pas in the bud.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our advanced matching helps find talented candidates so you can connect with them fast. Redeem your $75 credit at Indeed.com/credit. Terms and conditions apply.
He's a paradigm pioneer.
And the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and Chief Rondo, the former Minneapolis police chief, when they murdered George Floyd 5 years ago on May 25th. Chief, my time is getting tight. Let me run through a series of issues right here and get your take on them swiftly here. First, this news yesterday, the Department of Justice is pulling these civil rights investigations into local police departments, including the consent decree in Minneapolis. Your thoughts, sir?
I think that it is a bad decision. I think that the history of policing in this country, specifically when we talk about for civil rights and when police departments have been violating people's rights, we've needed that apparatus from the federal government to help with enforceable, court-enforced mandates against police departments. So I think it is absolutely disappointing, and to do it on the heels and with cities that have experienced what our country has gone through, particularly when you talk about Mr. Floyd's killing, Ms. Breonna Taylor, Mr. Tyree Nichols. I think it's very disappointing. I think it's a call to action for communities to say, If we're not going to have that support with the federal government, then we're going to have to come together and make sure that we build these established agreements with our police departments and make sure that they last longer than an administration.
You talked earlier about how you all changed the oath, updated, made better, put the word love in the oath at the Minneapolis Police Department. But Ben Crump, again, one of our guests this week, as we've talked about this anniversary, this commemoration 5 years later, Ben has said that what policing needs is mental health reform. I don't know, you don't know, as you said earlier, none of us can get inside of Derek Chauvin's head to figure out what he was thinking that day, or not thinking, as it were. But would police departments benefit from any sort of mental health intervention for cops?
Absolutely. And one of the things, and I'm so happy that Mr. Crump had mentioned that, there's been a stigma with mental health in the profession for so long. Stick it out, toughen it up. And we know this, hurt people hurt people. The last thing we need are police officers who are struggling with mental health issues, interacting with community that are struggling or suffering trauma. And so we need that, whether it's a checkup from the neck up, but we need that. And we need unions, police unions, to support police chiefs in making sure of that. And I believe that we got to eliminate the stigma. And I believe that those mental health requirements should be the same as officers taking their licensing test or learning how to drive their squad cars. So I think it's critically important, and I agree with Mr. Crump on that.
In our remaining moments with Chief Rondo, when we come forward, I want to ask him about qualified immunity and why we've made no progress on that 5 years after the murder of George Floyd, and then his thoughts on this rumor that Donald Trump may, in fact, pardon Derek Chauvin. You're listening to Chief Rondo, and I'm glad about it, on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say, when we come forward?
Because he's not going back.
And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it dry no more. Skin so moisturized with body wash.
Look at you now, no more dry skin. Your skin gets the moisture it craves with
they indulge in moisture body wash.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Chief Rondo. Before I get to these final two questions right quick for Chief Rondo, I just want to mention, I think Nekima, you mentioned Nekima Levy Armstrong a few times in this conversation. We all love Nekima. Forget Raymond. Everybody loves Nekima. And I'm so glad that she called you that night to bring your attention to this video, Chief, and that got you into action. And so we thank Nekima for having access to the Chief. And I want to thank the Chief for being receptive to community members, community leaders, calling them at midnight and taking their phone calls. So it's a symbiotic relationship. So I thank Nekima for making the phone call. I thank the Chief for taking the phone call. And I'm only raising that because I think Nekima's mother lives here in Inglewood, not too far from this studio, Miss Vera Davis. And so, Miss Davis, if you're listening today, thank you. You done good. You done good with Nekima and the way you raised her and the way she has shown up and continues to show up on behalf of her people is a thing of beauty. And so I want to thank her precious mother. Speaking of mothers, Miss Vera Davis for raising Nekima as she did. And again, she is not too far from the studio where I sit in the Merck Park down the road in Inglewood. To those two questions, right quick, Chief, in the 2.5 minutes I have left, I think I want to start with qualified immunity. We've not made any progress, really, 5 years later. What say you, sir?
I'm very concerned about qualified immunity as it is today, and that if we have situations now, fortunately, in Mr. Floyd's case, qualified immunity is obviously supposed to protect these public officials from any frivolous types of lawsuits unless they clearly violate a constitutional right. That was obviously the case in Mr. Floyd. But I'm also concerned when we look at what's happening with the situation with the officers, former officers with Brother Tyree Nichols. I mean, at some point, if a reasonable person thinks what occurred to Mr. Nichols, that should be protected, that those officers who engaged in that qualified immunity should protect them, that's going to be troubling, and that's going to be a concern. And quite frankly, if our communities continue to see what qualified immunity is supposed to be a tool to protect against frivolous lawsuits, but if it seems that it's hurting more, that's going to continue to be on the topic of conversation. And so we've got to do better. And I know our community's hurting every time we see these examples of that part of our judicial system failing. I
got a quick 30 seconds here. It makes me sick to my stomach to even think about this. But what say you about the potentiality, the rumors of Donald Trump pardoning Derek Chauvin?
It would be appalling. It's a miscarriage of justice if it occurs, and it will absolutely erode the public trust in our police departments. It will.
He was there.
And I hope it doesn't happen.
I hope it doesn't either. From your mouth to God's ears. He was there 5 years ago doing the right thing, and 5 years later, we're honored to have him, have had him on this program in this hour. The book is called Chief Rondo, Securing Justice for the Murder of George Floyd. He is the former Minneapolis police chief, now retired, but he was the man at the helm 5 years ago, and how grateful are we that it was him and say not Daryl Gates, a blast from the past, or some other police chief in cities who might not have shown up as Chief Rondo did. And so for that, we are eternally grateful. Chief, thank you for being there then. Thank you for being here today. Congrats on the book and all the best to you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good to have you on. Tomorrow is Friday, yeah. So tomorrow, the best of Tavis Smiley. Going to be tough figuring out what to reprise from this week of great conversations. So many anniversaries this week. We started this week with celebrating the centennial birthday of the brother minister Malcolm X, and closed this week commemorating the murder of George Floyd. Lots of great conversations this week. But tomorrow, the best of Tavis Smiley. Until then, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The U.S. Attorney General says the death penalty is possible for Elias Rodriguez, accused of killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers in D.C.
I was on the phone with Donald Trump all evening long. All evening, he called me first thing this morning. He is horrified by what happened.
Pam Bondi, in contact with President Trump, says he supports seeking the penalty if warranted. Rodriguez allegedly shouted "Free Palestine" during his arrest. Rapper Kid Cudi is testifying in Sean Diddy Combs' sex crimes trial in New York City. Cudi is answering questions about his relationship with Diddy's ex, Cassie Ventura Fine. Combs faces life in prison for sex trafficking and other charges. And a rare May nor'easter is soaking the Northeast with heavy rain and increasing winds. Flooding has hit Pittsburgh, and flash flood warnings are in effect for parts of New England, including Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maine.